David, you've got a question on Ukraine, I believe.
I have. I thought it was going to Rishi, I must admit.
Oh, well.
But I'm perfectly
there we
happy.
Are.
How would you propose to broker peace negotiations in Ukraine as opposed to continuing to provide arms to prolong the state of war?
Well, the only way this war will end is when the Russians leave Ukraine. And we need to make sure that we enable the Ukrainians to defeat Vladimir Putin. If there's any failed peace settlement, if there's any giveaway of Ukrainian territory, what we know from history is Russia will just come back for more. We saw that with the Minsk Accords, which didn't work. And we know what Vladimir Putin's plans are. He said that he wants to create a greater Russia, essentially the old Soviet Union, including the likes of the Baltic states. So that is why it's so important that we were the first European country to supply weapons to Ukraine, and we need to continue to do that, but we also need to work with our allies like the Americans, who are also putting weapons into Ukraine. We also need to toughen up the sanctions on Russia, because at the moment, the way Putin is able to fund his appalling war machine is because of the oil and gas revenues that he's getting. And so that means us finding alternative sources, particularly in the UK. We have the North Sea. We can invest in more nuclear, but it also involves other countries finding alternative sources as well. Because what Putin has done is he's used Europe's dependence on Russian gas to hold the whole continent to ransom. And that is appalling. And we know the end result of what happens when dictators get appeased.
Is that every inch of territory that's been taken since 2014?
Well, I certainly think it would be wrong for us to give away any territory on behalf of the Ukrainians. Now, of course, President Zelensky, ultimately is the person who has to determine what an eventual peace deal would look like. And he has been very clear that Russia needs to leave the entirety of the Ukrainian territory. But I think it would be completely wrong for the United Kingdom, or indeed any other country, to say Ukraine should give up part of their territory. That would be very wrong. And what I worry is the lesson it would give to aggressors around the world if Russia was seen by saber-rattling, by lining up troops on the border, lining up tanks on the border, then successfully gaining a piece of Ukrainian territory.
Sure.
What message would that send to others around the world? It would be a terrible message, and the long-term threat to global security would be appalling.
David?
No, I just wondered if you didn't mention anything about attempting to negotiate or broker some peace deal.
We have been involved in working on negotiations with our American, French and German colleagues, and we are providing support to the Ukrainians to do just that. But it is ultimately about what the Ukrainians are willing to negotiate. What I don't want to see is Ukraine be put under any pressure to give up territory for expediency's sake, because I'm saying it simply won't be expedient, because all we'll see is Russia retreat and then come back for more later. And they still haven't given up their ambitions to take the whole of Ukraine. It was a tactical retreat away from Kiev, not a long-term retreat, and we need to be very, very worried about Putin's intentions. It's one of the reasons, by the way, that I favour raising our defence spending to 3% of GDP over the next decade.
Still got lots of questions to get through.
Sorry.